Hello, everybody. Welcome to Industry Insider. This is a podcast that provides in-depth, one-on-one discussions about video games, game design, and an intimate perspective of what it's like to work inside the industry. Hosted by me, Dai, a professional video game designer, here to conduct casual interviews, hoping to educate and inspire developers of varying skill levels and consumers alike. Today, I have a very special guest. We are sitting down with the lead game designer of Liquid Ice Studios, Andrea F. She immigrated from Venezuela to the Netherlands to pursue her career and passion of game development. We'll ask her about her background, how she settled on a location so far away from home, and we'll touch on plenty of other topics like how to be a lead and how to foster creativity in a small studio. Without further ado, hello, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure to meet you. I or at least formally talk to you because I know we had met through the internet, Twitter actually. There was a very cool hashtag going around of what a game dev looks like. And it was really nice to see a bunch of people that are different flood my timeline. I ended up coming across yours and I ended up leaving a comment and you responded.
Yeah, I think that hashtag was really what got me, because I was not a very active user of Twitter other than reading things. Um, and I usually mostly just for game industry stuff. And that hashtag happened to go through like my timeline as well. And I was really enjoying seeing everybody's pictures. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna join as well. This seems like a fun thing to do, and at least I'll get to see a lot of new people. I was impressed by the amount of responses I got from that. And I got to meet a lot of new, like, cool people like you. I also got to talk with other people in the industry, and it really made me realize how many different people there are in the industry, and that we're all a little bit like misfits, but we fit together because we're all a bit misfits. And I really enjoy that.
Yeah,
But
and
yes.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's amazing to actually talk to you as well because we've been talking to Twitter like a couple of days, and it's nice to have a conversation with you now, finally.
Oh yeah, and it's really awesome to be able to again see a fresh face. And when I read your tweet, you had said that you had moved, which was actually what hooked me the most. I was like, "You moved?" And being an immigrant myself, I totally understand moving across the entirety of the world. I moved from Vietnam to the United States to work and go to school. So
That is a big move.
yeah, so when I saw that you went from Venezuela to the Netherlands, I was like, that is so cool. But that's such like much like how I immigrated. It's like I feel like that's so far away from the equator. So I left a comment and I was like, how was the change in scenery? And you were like, I think what you said the most was like the food was different.
Yes, of course, the change, food and weather were the biggest impacts because I moved at 18. As soon as I graduated high school, I moved to the Netherlands to study game design in a small city at the north of the Netherlands, Groningen,
Hmm.
um, which is a lot colder than I expected it to be. And the food is very different than what I'm used to eating back home. But yeah, mostly they tend to not eat big portions or big meals during the day, except at night, and they have dinner at 6, which for me was an entire culture shock. It's like it's not bad necessarily, but it's just very different because they just eat sandwiches, breakfast and lunch, and I'm used to eating, like a soup plus protein plus carbs
Yeah.
plus maybe a dessert for every meal of the day.
Yeah, and like in Vietnam, we wake up super early and work starts early and
Yeah.
like breakfast ends at like 9 a.m. and after like
Mm.
lunch there's like an hour break. Like most people sleep or smoke or bike or do other things. It's like there's a work break in the workday and school day. So I'm so used to that, and when I come over here and there's 30-minute lunches and breakfast, starts several hours later. It starts at like 7 or 8 o'clock and it ends at like 10:30. I'm like, everything is just so much later. And
It is. It's
yeah.
weird.
So I had
Because
a sorry, go ahead.
back home, it's similar to how it was for you in Vietnam, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We started the day very early. Like I used to go to high school. I was there by 7:45. right?
Oh yeah.
Which means I started studying at that time, and my day was done by 3, and then I had the entire afternoon. And
Yeah.
here, it's not like that. People start working at 9, and then they end work like at 6. And yeah, I had to adjust it, but at the same time, it worked out very well for me because I'm not very much a morning person. I'm more of an evening person.
Okay. I'm the opposite.
So the adjustment,
I'm a morning person. So to me, I'm like, I get up and my alarm is set for 4:30 in the morning. Work doesn't start until about 6. So for me,
wow,
I'm like, I'm just up, ready to tackle the day and ready to go. And yeah,
that is
so
insane. I don't know how you do it. I'm impressed, I
I
have to
uh
say.
I struggled for the first 2 weeks. I'm not gonna lie. I was because I had read something online that it was like better for you or something, and then I just see everybody was like, yeah, well, I wake up at this time, and I was like, I'm gonna try it. And it was during the pandemic. I literally had nothing better to do, and I was like, I'm gonna flip my sleep schedule, and instead of like waking up at like 6:30, I'm gonna get up earlier and tackle the day, study, read a book. I'm just gonna do different things. And
That is
so
fair.
for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I was really struggling. I was like, this isn't for me. This sucks. I am tired all the time. I started like yawning at like 10 a.m. 11. I still wasn't awake. I was like, oh man, this is rough because I had um when I started game design, I started self-taught indie dev. I was actually in school for theoretical physics.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and it was, I know, right? Such a far
Oh,
departure.
yeah.
So I went to UC Berkeley, which was at the time that I went, it was the number one school in the nation.
Impressive. Yeah,
And
I've heard of Berkeley, yeah.
yeah, it was crazy. And I was up late, and you know how college is. I'm sure you
Yep.
understand.
Yeah.
You're up late all the time, up early, up late, and it was just the days kind of mushed together. So when I was able to take a hiatus from just life in general, I was able to dive into some self studying, self learning, and that's when I had a little bit more control over my schedule and stuff. So that's I started not staying up as late.
Fair enough. Yeah. For me, it's a little bit of the opposite. When I got the freedom to do whatever I could with my schedule, because my classes, my university was very flexible in terms of schedule. Um, I made the conscious choice of making it later than earlier because even when I try to wake up very early, which I've done in my life several times, I've noticed that my body just doesn't function the same in the early morning as
Yeah.
much as in the evenings. And I read somewhere that's like people just have different biological clocks. Some
Yeah.
people are meant to be more active in the mornings, and some people are meant to be more active in the evenings because that's just how it used to be thousands of years ago. Because, yeah, whatever, biology. Um, but then I was like, well, that just means I'm an evening person, which means that I have to adjust my schedule to make sure that I take advantage of the most productive hours of my day. And that tends to be between 3 p.m. and 10 p.m.
Mm.
So I make sure that whatever takes a lot of energy or mental power, like learning or studying or working, I try to fit within those hours because it's where I can make the most out of my brain and, yeah, thinking process.
And
So
you,
I was very happy.
oh yeah, you mentioned university. I did you go to school for game design, or were you in like me, where you were just in completely different field?
No, I did. I went for game design specifically. So in high school, yeah, I made when I was in 10th grade or 11th grade of high school, because I went to an American school,
Oh, okay.
an international school in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
And well, one of the options was to go to the States to study, but I also have a European passport, which made it very easy for me to immigrate to Europe without a lot of visa hassle or all that
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
So when I was in 10th grade, this story is kind of funny. Well, not funny. It's just like it was meant to be. I always loved games. I've been playing games since I was 7,
Uh-huh.
and I just yeah, it was a thing that I did a part like as a hobby, a part of everything else. School, I always got like decent grades, but my free time was always playing games. And then I was figuring out what to study. I was like, well, I guess some engineering, or I also dabble on physics because I really love physics. And I was like, well, theoretical physics is like a good thing, or maybe calculus, or just going into civil engineering or something like that. But then a guy from a university in the UK came over to our high school to give us one of those career exams, like the exams you take to let you know what type of career path you should take based
Okay.
on your answers and
Yeah.
knowledge and all that stuff. And it said a lot about engineering. It said like I could be a good doctor, but I didn't like it, which is true. And then on the first page, big right number one was game design. And I was like, no way that's a career. It's like no way people actually like study for this. You know, I in my head it was just something that people did. And that was that.
Was it not like a job title in Venezuela? Because when I went back to Vietnam in 2019, I was met all my family and they were like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "I make video games." And they're like, "What?" And I was like, I'm a game designer." And they were like, "You make," because in Vietnam, um game is pronounced gam, and gam means ice cream. So they thought I was the head of like an ice cream startup, and I and I was like, no, I make video games, I make toys basically. And they were like,
Mhm.
that's a job, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, similar, very similar. In Venezuela, that's not really a thing. It's like the closest you can get, I guess, a graphic design as
Hmm.
a proper career, but that's like either you're an architect, an engineer, a doctor, a graphic designer, very, yeah, very no, quote unquote normal careers. And when I told my parents, it's like, guys, I'm gonna be a game designer. They didn't like, okay, they were very supportive, not gonna lie, but they were kind of like iffy about it. Like they weren't sure that that was a real thing. But I was so serious about it. It's like it just a passion unblocked in me, and I just knew that that was the thing I wanted to do.
Hmm.
Because I was good at other things, and that's fine. It's like I was good at math, so any engineering I would have probably been okay with, and yeah, physics or calculus or whatever. But they didn't fuel me. So, and if I'm not into something, I just don't put effort into it. So it was
Hmm.
not gonna be a fun life to have a job that I didn't really enjoy.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, you said that you played games when you were young. Were there a couple games that really piqued your interest when you were a kid, or were there games that you thought that you always came back to and can play all the time?
Oh my God, yes, Nintendo games. Super
Hmm.
Mario Bros. New for the DS very specifically.
Ooh.
That was the first game I actually owned. So
Yeah.
I got when I was 7 a DS. My dad came from the States, from a trip to the States, and he got me a DS. And I was like super intrigued, and my mind just blew. And it came with the Super Mario Bros. New, or New Super Mario Bros. I don't
Hmm.
remember where that word goes, but I just played so much. And of course, I was super bad. I was 7, right? It's like I died to the Goomba at the beginning of the first level, and my mom was trying to help me pass it as well. And I remember clearly, like the two of us, my mom and me together, sitting down and trying to jump the first Goomba and trying to get the mushroom that makes you bigger. Um, Figuring out how the DS worked, and that was one of those core memories for me that just shaped the path that I was going to take in
Hmm.
life.
Yeah,
And so much so, sorry, so much
no, go
so that
ahead.
I actually got a tattoo about it. It's
Oh,
like the
really?
first one. Yeah, yeah, that's one of the first tattoo I got. I was like, well, I got my first small tattoos as a tester, but the second tattoo I got is like, okay, it has to be something about video games. And I got the one up mushroom
Hmm.
tattooed because it was like, yeah, related to Mario, and it's like it's a really cool little like shape, and it's a really cool color, and I really like the entire concept of having like an extra life.
Yeah.
So I love it so much that I managed to get a tattoo on it.
Yeah, that's so funny that your core memory mimics that or we share the like essentially the same core memory. My mother
Uh-huh.
was playing the original Super Mario Brothers on the NES, the one that came with Duck Hunt,
Uh-huh.
and she's like super good at that game. Like she can beat that game in like 10 minutes. I can't.
Wow.
So she's like
Impressive.
flying. It's the opposite for me though, because I'm the one that's trash at that game, and she's the one that like spent time to learn it and play it, and she really loves playing it. So I still have an NES in the house specifically for her.
Oh, that's so amazing though. It's like I wish my parents were into video games like they do play with me every now and then, but they're not into video games like that.
Hmm.
They know about it and they understand them because it's an important thing for me. So it's yeah, but it is funny that we share that because not only are we immigrants together, but we also like relate on the core memory for our video games.
Yeah, my house anyway specifically has always been a video game house. So I have three siblings. I have an older sibling and two younger siblings. My mother
Hmm.
plays games like Tekken, Super Mario Brothers. She is a huge fan of Just Dance, and
Oh, that game is
oh,
amazing.
it's so much fun.
I love it.
So yeah,
It's
she's like a huge gamer, and I guess that's really where it started for me, anyways.
That's really nice. Yeah, my house always, I try to make it as much of a gaming house as I can. Back when I lived with my mom, it wasn't as much, like we always had some consoles and I always had my little setup, but of course, like I shared the house with two other people, my sister and
Hmm.
my mom. So I was like, okay, I'll keep them to my room, you know? But now that I live alone, it's like I have consoles and everything like revolves around my video games, and so much so that I have a better desk setup than a dining table. Like the dining table is extra. It's
Hey,
like I
just
managed to get it.
if you're the only person eating there, you can have a small table. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. One chair, a small table, that's all I need. But I do need like a couple of poofs for my friends to come over and play with
Mm,
the Switch with me.
yeah.
That's the important part.
Well,
Yeah.
it's nice that gaming has started both of our interests and careers, and of course has fostered our love for just creativity in general. So I wanted to ask you, when you finished uni, what was the deciding factor of the Netherlands? Did you want to stay in Venezuela? Did you want to go to the States, or like what was the thought process behind moving?
Well, I finished high school in Venezuela, and because I was studying in an international high school, I knew I had to move. That was definitive because the high school diploma I got was not really accepted in universities in Venezuela because it was
Ah,
international and
okay.
it being third world country, you know how it is. A little bit
Yeah, I do.
iffy. Exactly. So it's very yeah, so if I wanted to stay in Venezuela to study, which I really didn't, but if that was an option, I would have had to take like 6 months extra to make sure that my diploma was valid. So I had to take some extra
Wow.
classes and make sure that because I studied in English, so they had to, even though my Spanish is like that's my native language, I did have to take a Spanish course so they knew that I could speak Spanish properly.
Hmm.
But my country is not the best country to live at. There's a lot of social and economic issues in there. And when I graduated high school, particularly, it was at its very bottom. It's like to the point where food was hard to find,
Hmm.
people didn't have salaries, the inflation was over like 100% per month. It was
Oof.
insane. It was numbers that are insane. So I consider the States, I consider Canada, I consider the Netherlands, the UK, Scotland, and even Korea for a while.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I really wanted, but my dad didn't let me go to Korea because it was too far away
Too
from
far?
for them to
Yeah.
visit. Yeah, so I was like, okay, let's meet in the middle. Europe is very nice. The prices for universities here in the Netherlands for European people are very low. They're like 2,000 euros a year,
Okay.
right? Compared to the States where you pay like $60,000 per year or more. This was just economically better. And it was also closer to, I have some family in Spain, so I had somebody to visit to in case I needed. The entire, yeah, so the Netherlands just caught my eye. We checked out the university online, we checked out the place, and I really liked it. So I knew I had to leave the country, and I chose to go to the Netherlands, which, I mean, for a university as well, is like the party life, the student life, and just in general, the culture here was a really good fit for my personality. And then after I graduated uni, I decided to stay here because I got this really good job opportunity. So I wasn't particularly keen, or not keen, but I wasn't very mindful of where I went after uni, as long as I got a good job opportunity for it.
Hmm.
Because, well, yeah, I immigrated once, I can do it again. But I managed to get this really cool job. It's in a different city than where I study, but it's still within the Netherlands, and it's a culture I already know. The language I kind of manage. I understand how the laws and everything works here a little bit better than anywhere else I would go, at least. So I was like, well, why not? It's a really fast career kickstarter. It'll get me into the industry, I'll get experience, and it's an amazing project that I'm really into. Plus, well, the way I got this job was really funny.
Hmm.
A guy that graduated with me recommended me for the job.
Oh, okay.
So I got like the job almost automatically because I got a really good recommendation by this guy that was studying with me, and he got hired here first in November as a developer. And then I graduated a little bit later because I had to have a delay in my graduation because of some issues.
Hmm.
Um, and he recommended me, like, he realized that the startup needed a designer because they didn't have any game designers. They just had developers and artists, I think,
Yeah.
or sound designers as well. But they didn't have like an actual game designer. So they were like, guys, we need a game designer. And the lead developer was like, I know a person that can help us with this. And he recommended me for the job. And I applied. And literally on the interview, I got the job offered to me. It's like, well, if you want it, it's yours. I was like, yes, I want it.
Oh,
Please.
wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. It happened in a matter of less than a month. It's like I got recommended, I got the interview, and I moved here in less than a month, all with Christmas break in the middle.
That is, I'm
Insane.
I'm impressed. No, that's not
It's
insane.
insane.
No, I'm impressed. I'm thoroughly impressed
Insane.
by you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, that just goes to say that like talking to people and networking does help. That's the best way to get about in this industry, right? Is if you are good at what you do, or at least you're passionate and you're a good person and you talk to people and you get yourself to be known, then your reviews and people talk well about you, you're more likely to get opportunities. And well, it's up to you whether you take them or not. But in
Mhm.
my case, I always jump at the opportunity. So I did. It was
Wow,
really crazy.
that's I'm speechless. I really am. That would have I would have oh man, I would have spent so much time trying to make that decision. Did
Oh
you
no.
already have the visa or the passport?
Yes, I have a Spanish passport since I was very little. Well,
Mhm.
not very little, since I was like 13, 14,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there was this weird law that said that people that could prove ancestry of somebody that moved out of Spain when the Civil War was happening back in, I don't know, 19 something,
Okay.
could get instantly like a nationality. And I was like, hey, my granddad moved, like great granddad, I think it was, moved around that time. Can I please have a passport? And they said, yeah, sure. So yeah, I have it.
Wow, that's really cool. I gotta know that's
It
super
is.
cool.
It is very nice. Well, like I said, if I see an opportunity and I don't see why not take it, I just jump at it. It's like, well, there's nothing stopping me, so why not?
It's also very important that you had an opportunity that was basically yours to lose. You know, they offered it to you and they said, you know, this is all yours. It's a yes or no. And yeah, right then and there, I guess you just that is a really good quality to have, just being able to pull the trigger and make a quick decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I went really quickly through my head. It's like, do I have any good excuse as to why to say no to this? And none came to. It's a city. It's also funny enough. While I lived in the Netherlands, I don't know if you know a lot about the geography of it, but there's a city called The Hague where there's the International Court of Justice here.
Hmm.
And I came to visit a couple of times, and I always said that if I stayed in the Netherlands after graduating, I would like to live in The Hague. Like if it's in any other city, I will like maybe consider not moving there, but if it's in The Hague, I'll gladly live there.
Okay.
So the opportunity that was given to me was in The Hague for a designer position in a startup, not even a month after graduating. So it was just perfect. It was really
Everything
like,
just lined up.
yes, exactly. And at that point, you just don't say no. If everything lines up in your life and you say no to that, then you have nobody to blame but yourself.
Hmm. And that's wow. Again, very impressive. I'm very. That's just so cool. Like I can't say that enough. But yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the Netherlands. So when you moved here and you started, you mentioned earlier that it was a startup, small company. How was your first day like?
My first day, well, it was very early. Let's start with that. I made it to the office. Oh, okay. It was the first few weeks that I worked here. I didn't live here yet. So I had to come from Groningen, which is around 3 hours by train,
Oh my God.
and be here in the office by 9 a.m. on Monday. So what I did was that I came on Sunday night. I stayed at a place here of the parents of a friend of mine.
Hmm.
I asked them if pretty please they would let me stay in their sofa for a couple of days while I sort everything out. and they allowed me to stay there for 2 weeks. But at the same time, I had a job in Groningen, and I had to be there Friday by 10 a.m. So I took a train on Sunday. I was here Sunday evening at around 11. I went to sleep and I woke up at like 7 because I didn't want to make it late and I was super anxious about it. And I just walked because I didn't have a bike. I didn't know how the trams worked here or the public transport, and it wasn't that far, so I just walked here. And as I walk in, there were a lot of other new people because we all got hired, like the majority of the team got hired to start the same day.
Mm.
So I just walk in, and there's this one guy, Bram, who is like the lead artist in our team. And he's kind of introducing us, but he also started working not even a week before. And he was like, well, here are your laptops, choose your desk, and all that stuff. And I was just weird. I was like, what's going on? This is surreal. And I remember very clearly saying, like, walking into the place and saying, oh, this is so cool, but also I need a coffee if I'm going to interact with this many people. So the first thing I walked in and said was like, okay, guys, I need a coffee. Where is the coffee machine? Like, hi, my name is Andrea. Where is the coffee? And months later, one of the other artists that was also starting that day, she mentioned to me, is like, hi, I remember clearly the first thing you said to us was that you needed a coffee. So yeah, that basically defines my entire personality. If it's early, I need a coffee on it.
That's
But
yeah,
yeah.
that sounds like a fantastic first day. That sounds like a very easygoing one.
It was, and the entire atmosphere of our company is very easygoing, very open. I'll even say, like, most of us are just friends and we're just making a cool game together. Even though we all met each other, I remember it was like the 17th of January, it was a Monday,
Hmm.
and we all met each other either that day or the next day because some people started working on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just, yes, choose your desk, here's your laptop, take your time to unpack, get it like to know the office. The lead developer, who was the one that was working there for the longest, arrived at 11:30 or almost midday. So between 9 and midday, all we had to do was get to know each other, um, set up our desks, and wait until the lead developer will show up to introduce us to the project because he was the one that knew the most about the project.
Okay.
Um, and the product owners, or like the owners of the company, arrived also later, and then we got introduced to them as well later on. But yeah, the first day was basically talk to each other, get to know each other, let's talk about the game a little bit, onboard you, because it was all of us were new.
Hmm.
So we all got to meet each other at the same time, which was very nice.
But that's super awesome though, because first impressions are like immensely helpful when working with the new team. So
Yes.
when you got to meet everybody and they sat you down and or sat everybody down and talked about the project, like what was if you could talk about the project, what is it and what do you like most about it?
The project is, yeah, I can talk a bit about it because it's already been released. At least the alpha is on
Hmm.
alpha, pre-alpha. I don't know very well how the alpha situation work in the industry yet. But basically, we're testing with a small group of people. It's a turn-based battle game.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat Viking themed, but it's more like there are creatures that are based on thematics of the Viking mythology and like Nordic mythology. And yeah, they have abilities. They fight each other in a grid map of hexagons. It's like a hexagon.
Oh, so
Yeah.
it's like old school Mega Man Battle Network, or like Final Fantasy-esque.
Something well, I don't know a lot of those games. I'm very
Oh,
young,
okay.
so
Oh, it's all
the very
good.
old games, the reference I'm not really good at, but because I at the beginning when it was shown to me, it was nothing like what it is right now.
Okay.
So when I arrived to the project, it was more like Pokemon, I guess,
Hmm.
or what other Monster Hunter has a battle system like that, I think, as well, where it's just a creature and the other creature, and you have a turn and you attack it, and then that's that. You
Hmm.
have things that you can do. And I was like, well, guys, but why are we making Pokemon again? It's like it's already made. It's very popular. They made millions. I don't think we're gonna do anything about like new with it, you know?
Yeah.
So we worked in this project for like a week, and then in a week, that's something that they always bring up is like the next Tuesday after I started working, I come into the office after because I came by train, like I told you, I came by train from Groningen. That's 3 hours in the train that I'm just sitting there with my thoughts alone. And I was talking to a friend, and I remember mentioning, yeah, like I'm trying to figure out this part of the design of the game because I'm not really sure about it.
Hmm.
And then I realized that it's not that I wasn't sure about that part of the game, it's that I wasn't sure about the entire design as a whole.
Yes.
So I sat down for 3 hours and I redesigned the entire game. And then I arrived on Tuesday morning to the office and I was like, guys, I have something to tell you. Our current design is not very fun, and I think that's like a key thing to a game. So how about we change it? This happened like 20 something of January, and we had to the deadline set to do the pre-alpha release by the end of February.
Oh my God.
So here I am changing the entire game concept a month and a week before the deadline. But it was like my reasoning was like, okay, if we release what we currently have, it's not gonna be fun. People are not gonna like it, and then everything's gonna go down the drain because the investors are expecting some good answers out of this, right?
Hmm.
So I sat down with the lead developer, the lead artist, the lead sound engineer, and the two owners of the company, and I pitched my new idea, and I told them all like the reasoning why I thought we should make this pivot now. And I think it was by 3 p.m. they say yes. And then from 3 p.m. until, I don't know, it was like 11 or something, we spent like six of us in a room figuring out the details of the design. So it was all like this, like the six of us going crazy, doing paper prototype. Like I'm talking, we ripped out sticky notes, we made like a map really quickly drawing, and then we had the sound engineer made these really cool figurines out of paper as well, like sort of origami to define like the characters, and we made cutouts. It felt honestly like a jam, like a game jam.
Yeah.
And we managed to figure out at least the basics of the design that day. And then the next day we introduced it to the entire team and we made a huge pivot. But the results were insane. When the pre-alpha came out, the entire community was super hyped by it. We had so many like positive results. Everybody was impressed by the quality of the game in the time frame that we made it. And yeah, it was like we got overwhelmingly positive results out of it, which made us very happy.
Wow, that if that's something that kind of dynamic decision making on the fly is something that is very unique to small teams, and that's something that you guys at the studio have seemingly harnessed as a positive thing.
Yeah,
So
I think
sorry,
we're
go
very
ahead.
adaptive. Like we are one of the qualities of our team is that we just adapt very quickly and
Hmm.
we are very proactive. We see a problem and we see the positives of it, not the negatives. And all of us are very motivated to solve it instead of just sitting down and like feeling bad about the fact that we have a problem. It's more like, okay, we have a problem. That's cool. That means we get to like figure out a solution together and we get to work towards it together. And I think that's something that makes this particular team not only the best team I've worked with, but a very good one. Like we really work well together.
Yeah, that's like that. I am shocked, impressed, and just speechless at the fact that you guys pivoted with 1 month and 1 week. So that's like less than 40 days worth of
Yes.
time. I'm sure you guys spent a lot of time in the office doing that, or
Yes, it was
pivoting.
insane. It was the hours we put in for that time were crazy, but I don't think. Okay, I don't want to say it wrong, but at least I personally never thought I was forced to do it. It was more like, well, I want this project to do well because I feel a connection to it, and I want to put in the effort and time to make sure that or to guarantee that we have a good release, at least for as much as I can do as the designer, right? Because of
Hmm.
course, well, no game gets done by just one discipline. It's like it's a teamwork. That's just the entire point of making games. You work with other disciplines, you work with other people, and you get to do this really cool thing together. I know the developers, like the backend and front end developer, went crazy with the amount of work they had to do. And days before the release, we also or at least the majority of the office got COVID.
Oh.
So we were all working from home with like headaches and fever, but we wanted to make the release because we didn't want to push the date.
Yeah.
Because that's always something really like it's not nice when a community is already hyped up for a specific date for the release, and then you say, "Sorry guys, we're gonna push it another week." So we really, really like did our best to release at the end of February, and we did. We released like 28th of February at 10 p.m. Crazy time, but we made it. And then of course all of us took like a week off. It was like, okay, guys, have
Well, I
fun,
mean,
test the game. We're gonna sleep.
after all that crunch, you have to take time off.
Yes, definitely. Mainly the developers, because the development team is small for what we need. So they deserved all the rest they could get. Honestly, it was they pulled through insanely well. They managed to make this game like super. Because well, design does a lot of stuff at the beginning, but then towards the end, there is only so much you can do to help make the game itself. Because well, at least I personally, I'm not good enough at programming to be able to sit down with the developers and program the game. And my knowledge in 3D art is also very limited. So I cannot sit there and like help animate or make models or VFX or anything like that either. So once the design was fleshed out, all like my entire job was basically answering questions whenever a situation came up where we didn't have an answer. This was my job to solve it for them and all those things. But the heavy design lifting work happened in the first few weeks. And then the last few weeks, it was mostly implementation. So those guys worked insane hours the last few weeks. It was impressive. I'm super, like, I was in awe about the amount of things they managed to do in such a short time.
With your short time in the industry, because you expressed that you were a junior earlier, well, at least off interview, you expressed that you were a junior. Has your time in the industry so far, has it been positive? Do you enjoy it? Is this only strengthened your passion and motivation to continue this career?
It definitely is. I've been working in the industry, well, since January, so 3 months, 4 months. And I gotta say that has been the happiest I've been. It only made or it reaffirmed the fact that I made a good choice when I decided to study this. Because it is work, don't get me wrong, it is a job and it's work, but it feels like it's not sometimes.
And that's the perfect balance that you strike when you make decisions like large decisions like this for your life, right? Because this isn't a decision that you can just dip your toes in because you moved so far away from home. I mean, this is where you studied for in school. Yeah, like this is something that essentially, if it has to work out, right? And it's beneficial for you that it's worked out and is continuing to work out. And not only does it strengthen your love and passion for the games, game design, and the game industry as a whole, it's allowed you to, well, essentially be yourself and be the best version of yourself.
That is very true. It honestly has. It just confirms that I was right about myself, about what I wanted to do. And it's allowed me to be, well, first it's allowed me to be more confident about a lot of aspects of my life, because knowing that it's weird. It's like knowing that I know myself well enough to have made this decision so long ago and still be happy with what I do and be so passionate about it allows me to think like, well, that means I have a good intuition for a lot of things regarding me, myself, and my surroundings, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same for moving to the city, right? It's like I chose this city years ago, even before the opportunity arose. And I just knew that I was going to be happy in the city. And I moved here and I got this job and I'm happy. And I was like, huh, I was right about that too. So that just allows me to be more sure about the decisions that I make in life. It's like I'm more confident and assertive about them because so far it's worked out. And the ones that haven't worked out, because of course not every decision I've made in my life has had positive results or as positive as this one. The ones that haven't worked out have at least been a very good learning opportunity. So I've learned from them, I've grown, and I've made like adjustments because of them. So that's also really good.
Wow, yeah. It seems like you have fit in very well and that you're prospering very well at your new job. And I wanted to ask, what do you do on your free time, if you have any?
Yeah, free time. What is that? No, just kidding. I do have free time. I make myself have free time, and it's something that I've noticed as well in this type of job is you don't have extra time. You carve out time for things that are important for you.
Hmm.
So I do like going to the gym and training. So every day I try to at least do something, which I really enjoy because it helps with my health. And my job is very stationary. So it's like I'm either sitting on a desk, standing around a desk, or sitting in a meeting room. Um, I also like to go out partying a bit. Well, a bit, yes.
Hey, you have to.
Um,
You have to let loose a little bit, right?
exactly. So whenever I do have a free weekend, which is not as often anymore, but whenever I do have a free weekend, I like to go out, meet new places in The Hague at least, because I don't know a lot of places here except the
Hmm.
office and the gym. But the last weekend, for example, I went to a new bar and I like looked at it. I was like, oh, this is nice. I would like to come back. And every time that I have a little bit of a lighter weekend as well, I try to go to Groningen to see my friends, which I'll see them this weekend. So shout out to them because some of them are listening to the podcast, which is really cool. Thank guys. But yeah, I like to go there, say hi to them, visit them. And apart from that, I hang out with one of my friends here a lot as well. And that's that. It's like the rest of my time, honestly, I just work. I design games. That's what I do. I don't even play games a lot anymore, which is something we were talking about a little bit before. It's like I don't even have time to play games because all my time is making games. And then when I get home, it's like, well, it's either playing games or socializing with people. And
Hmm.
socializing is a little bit healthier than staying at home stuck playing games, I think.
When you do have time to play games, do you find that your developer brain turns off, or is it because for me, I can never. It always feels like
Oh.
work, even when I'm playing games.
Yes, I have the same thing as well. I think that's also one of the reasons why I choose to spend my free time doing other things than playing video games,
Hmm.
because whenever I'm playing games, I can do it. It is doable for me to shut down the developer slash like the designer aspect of it, but it takes a lot of effort. Mainly because one of my friends that I work like that I play games with, he's also studying as a game designer in Argentina right now.
Yeah.
So when we're playing games together, the first conversation topic that comes up is just theory design. It's like what could have been done better? What do you think they did well? How did they do that? Can we recreate it? How can we apply it to the projects we're currently working on? And yeah, it just feels like work. It's like it is great because you learn new things, but at the same time, it's like if I wanted to work, I would be at the office, you know?
Yeah, it's exhausting sometimes being able to sit down and you're like, yeah, time to crack open Elden Ring or this new game that I'm playing or Horizon or whatever it may be. And you turn on and you're like, wow, this menu is really nice. The font that they
Yeah.
used is really, really nice. Or, like the loading screen is great. The no loading times, this and that. Oh, these levels, I'm a level designer myself. So to me, I'm like,
Oh.
wow, these hallways look really, really great. And I'm like, I need to stop.
I have the same thing, exactly the same thing. Mostly because I do a lot of like mechanics. And for
Hmm.
me, it was the battle system. So I was playing Elden Ring for a little bit. I was like, wow, how did they balance the damages versus the health versus the difficulty of this and the weapons and the stats that you put here and there? Because all those numbers are crazy. Because I was running into similar situations, given that the game I'm currently working on is a battle system as well. Obviously, way more simple, but given that I have no experience with battle systems, for me, this like feel like rocket science, you know?
Hmm.
And then I look at things like Elden Ring having such a complex like number systems and battles and like balancing of levels and difficulty, and I was just trying to figure out how it all worked, and I was like, okay, wait, stop. You gotta play the game to enjoy it. You're not gonna go crazy trying to figure out the numbers for it. That's work, research related stuff. You'll do it at the office. You'll look at analysis videos or something like that. While you're playing, enjoy it. But it's very hard.
Yeah, I totally agree. It when I first started, at Ubisoft, I spent a lot less time playing games. I think at one point in time, I played probably 2 games a year, maybe 3. I beat like 3 games a year. Um,
Wow.
so like I did not spend any time playing games. The last half of 2020, I think I played what was it? Or no, it was last year. I think I ended up logging like 80 hours into my PlayStation. So I beat Resident Evil 8 or 7 Village,
Mm.
and I beat Ratchet and Clank, and that's all I managed to play last year.
I mean, fair enough. But you mentioned working at Ubisoft. Do you mind telling me a bit about what you did there or how was your experience there? Because, well, yeah, I have a lot of questions about how it actually works in the industry since I don't have a lot of experience, and it will be very insightful to know about yours.
Uh, it's a little tough because I come from the AAA space, so there's a lot more people I have to talk to, a lot more emails. But yeah, I was a level designer. So for me, I worked on Watch Dogs Legion,
Okay.
which was developed in conjunction with Watch Dogs 2. So when Watch Dogs 2 uh closed about halfway through its production, about 14 months into production, in about 2017, right before launch, we started Watch Dogs Legion, and kind of like the next thing. And what we did was, the first thing that we did was we patched Watch Dogs 2 to kind of do an Easter egg about what the next game is going to be.
Okay.
After that, we ended up going to London and scanning things. Well, I didn't go on the trip, but some of the team members went on the trip. And for me, as a level designer, I got all the scans back, all the photos, and I've never been to London, but all the
Oh, well.
photos and everything like that. And I basically had to recreate that stuff in the game. So we kind of walked through a lot of things that we wanted in the game. So on the trip, one of the designers got to meet like some Royal Navy guy. He was a young kid just like me. I'm 25, by the way. I'm not very old.
Okay. I'm
But
22, so I'm even younger.
yeah, he was probably around your age, and
Okay.
the designer stopped him on the street and was like, "Hey, why are you out here with picket signs?" Because at the time, and obviously I'm trying to remember the story, how it was told to me, but at the
Yeah.
time, I think one of the parliament members was caught up in some money laundering scheme. It was not a
Oh.
good look. It was not a good look at all. And so when that happened, they decided, like, why don't we set the game here? Do this about why don't we do a story about it being like the everyman story? And I guess when the designer talked to this Royal Navy guy, he asked, he was like, "Why are you out here? Why are you so angry? Why are you here with picket signs?" And they're like, "Well, the idea is that these guys, like, they don't understand what it's really like down on the ground."
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, at the time, there was a lot of political uproar, and Brexit was about to be happening. There was just a lot going on, and a lot of immigration, racism, a lot of phobias going on, and the news was just bumbling left and right with stories of this and that happening. So we decided that, why don't we take these stories that we see on the news and put them in the game? So that was something that really launched our design team, launched the direction of the game. So yeah, so that's actually ended up how the game started. And then for me, until then, was once that trip got wrapped up, we sat and emailed each other and made sure that everything was essentially one to one. And we found out that there are things in London that are copyrighted. So Big Ben is
Oh, yeah.
copyrighted. So actually, Big Ben in the game is not a 1-to-1 scale. It's like a 1 to 93 scale. So it's like,
Oh.
and the sound is just pitched just a little bit off so that we don't get sued by the government. um,
That makes sense. Yeah.
but little things like that was something that, again, I come from an indie background. So when I first started, I was working with Unreal, and it was only one other person, my business partner, and we basically just did whatever we wanted to do. But when you're at the AAA level, there's a lot of hands, and by that I mean, like, the design team was 20 people,
Wow.
and then three leads, so it was 24 people, and then myself, or it was 23 and then myself, so it was 24 people. So we kind of had to balance and everything and make sure that all of our voices were heard, all of our decisions were being made timely, everything was going properly. There was a lot less work outside of the studio because the problem is that, like, because you're working with a large team,
Mm-hmm.
when you take work home and you do work at home and you bring it into the office the next day, we as a team, like when I bring something in and let's say I change the dimensions of this door, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't, like, in an indie space or in a startup space like in your studio, you guys can just all, like, let's say the six of you guys in the room, right? So if there's six of
Mm-hmm.
you guys could get together, do the math, and draw it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I was like, okay, I want to change the dimensions on this door. So then I changed the dimensions on this door, and then the programmer would have to make sure that the code that is running is making sure that it's procking the animations, the anims to the door opening, and then we send it over to the UI guys, and the UI guys have to be like, well, yeah, the interact button still works, and then we have to send it over to the modelers and the textures to make sure that the textures are updated and weren't stretched or
Oh,
weren't terrible. So creating, like, changing things, there's a huge line of commands that we have to follow. So even one simple decision is now hours of work for several other people.
that's insane.
So that's something about the AAA space that is much, much different than the indie space.
But it makes sense, right? Like in a such a big team, everything has to be streamlined or pipeline, and it's like one thing snowballs into a lot of other. Like, yeah, I
Yeah,
wonder.
so when you create work for other people, it's like decisions have to be then for meaningful, right?
Yes.
And it has to be a huge group discussion. What else? I mean, you've crunched, so you know, like, that's just how it works. Crunch is pretty much still the same. And what else? Yeah, it's just a lot of pitch meetings. It's a lot of people that I don't speak to on the daily. A lot of suits. A lot of I talk to a lot of producers and legal, and I talk to corporate a whole lot. And there's like monthly meetings
Do
and stuff.
Yeah, because I wonder how much that's something that I realize, of course, is on a much more smaller scale. Because you were a level designer, but were you a lead at the Ubisoft or were you a lead somewhere else?
I
Because you
was
mentioned
a
you
lead at Ubisoft because
okay.
there was a position, not a position open, but there was a guy was on leave and
Mm-hmm.
nobody was there to really fill the spot, so they gave it to me.
And then yeah, that's my question goes into once you're a lead and not just a normal designer, how much time or is it normal for a lot of your time to start being into like management related things? So more like you said, you talk to a lot of suits, to corporate, to legal, because even in the smaller space like here in a startup, for me, I went from expecting or at the beginning it was mostly design work. It's like sitting down and actually
Hmm.
designing things and making things to now at least 50% of my time is in meetings, it's talking to people, is making more like management related decisions. And I wonder if that's like a normal thing for a lead
Yes,
to do.
it is normal. So for, again, the difference here is that it's just a larger scale, right? So on an indie studio, if you needed to talk to somebody or you needed to delegate some work, you can just walk over there.
Yeah.
But for here, it's like if I needed to delegate some work, I'll tell you a story. There was a issue with one of the levels that we had created. It was a little hallway, and there was nothing. It seemed everything seemed normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
A junior designer put a photo of the Beatles in when they were in Germany, I think 1970 or something like that. They were like really early on. They were young.
Mm-hmm.
And you could only see this photo from like a certain angle or a certain area. And it was supposed to be a placeholder item. The designer just Googled something, put it in, dropped it in, called it a night, right? So legal caught wind of that and was like, "We can't use that. Do you guys know what that is?" And we were like, "I was like, yeah, that's the Beatles." And the junior dev was like, "Oh, I didn't know who that was." And I was like, "Dude, you can't do that." And
Oh wow.
so yeah, when that time came, it was like when we were able to, when I was talking to everybody, it's like instead of just walking over to somebody's desk, it's now emails, it's now phone calls, it's now like, hey, who do I need to get in contact with to fix this problem? And legal was, and so I was obviously emailing legal and making sure that's like, hey, we'll get this fixed, no problem. We'll get this fixed like in an hour, 2 hours, and we'll get this set up and we'll double check everything. We'll, comb the assets, make sure that everything is properly in line with um, copyright and trademarks and stuff like that. But that little tiny thing was now, instead of in a indie space where I just walk over to the desk, hey Andrea, you can't do that. Remove that, please. Now it's, hey Andrea, hang on a second. Give me like about 30 minutes. I'm gonna make some phone calls. And then I
Oh wow.
circle back in 30 minutes and an hour and be like, hey, okay, you got to change it. You can't do it. This is what we're going to do from here. And so, yeah, that's how it is when it's scaled up to the AAA space. But yeah, most of my time was spent doing emails for the last half of production.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But it does make sense to be fair, because part of the job as a lead, I guess, is to communicate between the higher ups or the suits or like legal and all those people to your design team, right?
Yeah. And it was
The-
less like people giving me work to do, like, hey, do this. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it, here you go. And now it's like,
Mhm.
hey, can you make sure this is done by Friday? And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, sure. I will make sure that the right people get on that.
Yeah, makes sense. This is more management. But it's interesting to know that at least it is kind of the same, but it's just scaled up to an like crazy level of complexity and amount of people. Because yeah, we're in our studio, we are I think 17 right now. So it's small but not that small.
Mhm.
But I still feel overwhelmed by the amount of people. You know, it's like one thing is to make, because I'm used to working in uni projects, right? I've
Yeah.
never worked in a properly big team before. This is the first job in the industry I have. And in uni, it was 6 people, and none of us knew what we were doing. And now we're 17 people, and some of us kind of know what we're doing, but not really, but we're trying to figure it out together. But we are 17 people, and mainly the lead, because we're all also juniors. Like, none of us have more than a year of experience on this.
Yeah.
And we are telling other people, or we're delegating tasks, and we're telling them this is the deadline, and we're trying to like figure out certain things and timelines. And all of us are always looking at each other. It's like, am I doing this correctly? It's like, is this what we're supposed to be doing? But it's nice to hear like it's a similar kind of responsibility, even when it scales up to that level.
Yeah, I when it comes to lead, the first couple of things I really needed to learn was what kind of leadership style that worked best for me, right? And
Okay.
I'm a participant, right? So like there was this book and test that you can do online, but there's like 3 or 4, and one is like an authority figure. So you basically tell people, hey, I need this done, and here are my expectations. This is what I need it done for. Like, this is the kind of leader that's like, here are the bullet points. Thank you, and then you leave, right? And those kinds
Mm-hmm.
of people are nice to push everybody in the right direction, but
Mm-hmm.
in moderation. If
Okay.
it's too much of an authority figure, then it becomes much like a boss and less like a leader, right?
Fair.
Then you have the delegative people that are like, they're basically like the cool boss. They're your cool friends. It's like, hey guys, we need to get this beta out the end of February. So yeah, let's get on it. And that's the kind of leaders. Some teams thrive in that kind of environment where those that kind of leadership is best in teams that already know each other, already gelling on all cylinders, are already aware of each other's capabilities. They can kind of, they're individuals. They kind of work well together, and they already know what's expected. So you don't. It's a very hands off. It's a very
Makes sense.
it's a very small studio set because it's like there are no walls. If you need something, you can just feel free to have the freedom to get up and find that person that you needed. Hey, this the battle system's not working, the damage numbers aren't showing up.
Yeah.
And the programmer's like, okay, well, let me check the code, and it's like, hey, it's not me. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm gonna continue to problem solve, and I'm gonna walk over to the UI guy. So your leader is not actually leading. The leader is giving the individual the power to basically manage themselves. I'm a participant kind of leader. So I'm the kind of guy that's like, here's some advice and let's work on this together. So I'm the kind of guy that's I lead by example. So if I would never ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't already know how to do, or I don't know the hoops that I have to jump through to get it done.
Okay.
So if I'm asking you to redesign the battle system, I know myself that the redesigning an entire battle system means that new numbers, new equations, new assets, new this, new that. So to me, I would say something along like, hey, Andrea, can you redesign the battle system? If you run into any problems, let me know. I can make assets for you, or I can redo the equations. And that way I'm participating with you, and or I'm offering guidance, and it's less like, hey, Andrea, redo the battle system, please. I need it done by next Friday, and then I walk off. Or it's less the authority figure where it's like, Andrea, I need the battle system redone. We need new assets, new this, new that, and you don't have a lot of time. I'm sorry, I'm telling you this under short notice, but we need it by next Friday. So yeah, we're just making a huge pivot in the game, and this is all on your desk. And then I leave.
Wow.
And it's like that, those kinds of, the other two leaders, the delegative and the authority figures, make it feel like there's either too much pressure or no pressure at all.
Sure, yeah, makes sense.
So you just have to find out which kind of leadership style you are. And then from there, you need to make sure that your transactions are proper, right? Because that's the biggest thing with leads, is that the way you come off to other people. Sometimes you have to understand whether or not it's a situation or a transaction, right? A situation is like telling people what to do or convincing people to, like, okay, so your pitch, right? That was a very situational thing, right? So you redesigned the stuff, redesigned the game, and you came in to pitch it, and you said, all right, I'm going to tell you guys what we're going to do, and I'm going to sell you guys on what we're going to do, and then I'm going to take a more active role in the decision-making process by pitching to you guys, and I'm going to explain to you guys why I'm doing this, and then I'm going to go do it myself and do the parts that I need to myself. And that way, it's a very situational leader, right? You're directing, you're coaching, you're supporting, and then you're delegating. Whereas a transactional kind of leader is, I mean, it's very much leader follower, right? Like, hey, I need you. You're a member of this group. You're an individual. You need to obey the leader. I need something, and you can fulfill the job for me. So it's very so much like A and B will get to point C together, right? And less of like, hey, this is what we need to do. It's a team environment. This is like, it's very significant to us. Let's talk about it. Let's pitch our ideas. Let's make sure it's a team effort, and less of like a, hey, I need this done. And so we can move down the road.
That makes a lot of sense. That's really good to learn and like keep in mind, because yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't have a lot of experience on this. So hearing this advice and hearing all of this is very useful to me. Makes me think about the way I've been approaching things in the past few months.
And then the only other pieces of advice I have for you is communicate, which you don't seem to have a problem with. For me, I don't believe there's anything as over communication.
Me neither.
I'm like, look, this is as long as this is the details of what I want. Does this make sense? And they go, yeah, I think this makes sense. I'm like, okay, you don't seem shaky. You seem shaky on it. Like, what can I do to explain it better? And that's like, communicate. Because, as a leader, when your team does well, it rests on your shoulders. But when your team fails, it also rests on your shoulders. So you need to make sure that everybody understands what's the bigger picture is and what's actually going on. And then the last piece is, again, something that you don't seem to have a problem with, is be decisive, right?
Oh yeah.
It's okay to make the wrong decision as long as the entire team is moving in one direction, right? Because
Yeah.
think of it like a train or driving, right? Driving and missing your exit, right? And you can always turn around, you can always stop, and you can always guess for instructions. But when you commit to something, you have to commit full force, right? Hesitation kills. So
That is true.
when you make a decision, you have to stand by it. There are plenty of times where, like, I got some stuff back from QA and was like, "Hey, this level doesn't work." And I was like, what do you mean?" And they were like, "It doesn't work, it has 89 bugs in it. There's tons of optimization issues. Textures are popping in here. The walls aren't connected here, and hitboxes are instead of 6 pieces, they're 2 pieces, head and body. And somehow damage to the foot registers as damage to the entire body. So the multiplier is still the same. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, you're gonna have to cut some content. And I was like, well, if this decision is on me, then I guess we're gonna have to cut this and this and this. We're gonna have to cut A and B, right? If I hesitated and was like, well, maybe I should cut C, it's like when you're in a team and people are 2 or 3 hours into work, and then I come by and, hey, Andrea, I got some good news and bad news. The good news is there is no good news. The bad news is that actually what you're fixing, we kind of don't need fixed, and we need to do this. And that kind of hesitation really kills a project, kills the momentum of a project. Because it loses time, and you know how it is as developing when deadlines are creeping up. The deadlines always feel super far away when they're down the road. Oh yeah, we got a month, and the next thing you know, it's, oh, we got 3 weeks, and the next thing you know, it's, oh, it's next week. So an hour or 2 a day here wasted 1 week, that's an entire work day. So yeah.
That is very true. I'll keep that in mind as well. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it also has to do with a little bit of practice and experience, that because these past 3 months have felt like years in terms of learning for me. It's like whenever I remember that I started working on this like January, and then I realize it's only April, and I'm like, I feel like it's been 5 years and only a week at the same time. But
yeah, it's it'll go by faster once things start sticking.
that is fair. But it's really good to have like some advice from somebody that has been in the industry as well, because that's something that I've been struggling to get a little bit. Because one thing is articles and people saying this in Twitter, saying that in Twitter, or like saying this in a talk in GDC talk, or saying that in an article. But something very different is to get like personal experience advice from somebody that's been through it as well. And that's very, like, I'm thankful for it because it's very valuable.
Yeah, like I said, you just have to find out what kind of leader you are, and then you have to identify what kind of situation you have. Whether it's a situation that's a team effort, or whether it's a situation that it's like, I need a transaction. I need to find one specific person. I need to do one specific thing, right? Yep. Again, like your battle system not working, like that's a transactional situation because you need to know what's not working about it. Oh, well, the numbers aren't showing up on screen. So you go to the programmer, and the programmer's like, I'm like, hey, programmer, this is the problem. I need it fixed, and I'm hoping that it's you. And they run their numbers and do their thing, and they go, nope, die, it's not me. And I go, okay, cool. So that transaction, it's not, you don't need all 24 people I don't need all 24 people on my team working on this, right? I only need 1 or 2 people. So that, I identified that as a transactional problem. So now I have to go find the transaction. Whereas a situational problem is something like, this level's not working. We need to make sure what content needs to be cut. How far are you guys along? And the guys are like, oh, well, the texturing guys aren't doing anything right now because they're waiting on results, or waiting on the prototype engineers or the programmers to optimize the level, make sure the code runs. Or the texture guys are waiting on the animators, right? And the animators are I don't know, 6 weeks behind, or the level designers are now like, well, if we cut parts of the level, like we're gonna be 2 weeks behind. So now it's like
Mm-hmm.
leveraging as an entire team. It's a situation now you're in. So
Okay,
yeah,
that makes
it
sense.
gets easier to identify the more you do it, but in the beginning you're gonna want to think that it's an entire team problem
When it's not.
automatically, when most of the time it's one or two people that you need to talk to. So yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. I'll keep that in mind. And one question I wanted to ask you as well,
Hmm.
if you don't mind, is
Yeah, sure.
because usually what is a normal amount of weeks for a delay? Because you mentioned it's like 6 weeks delay, 2 weeks delay, and is that because again, very little experience. I've only worked for this for a while, and we haven't had any big delays yet, but we do expect at some point to have them, and I would like to know what it is in the gaming industry as a whole. I know there's difference between triple A's and like indies because of that entire thing of, well, things take more time because it has to go through more people.
Hmm.
But what is a normal amount is like something goes wrong, we have a delay, is like a day delay or like 2, 3 weeks delay or 6 weeks or months.
As a lead, you have to identify how big the problem is.
Okay.
Um, I can't speak for all problems, but normal delays are somewhere between 3 to 6 weeks. Big
Okay.
delays are somewhere between 9 weeks. On at a team your size, it'll probably be somewhere between 2 weeks for a small problem, 6 weeks for a medium-sized problem, and 8 weeks for a large problem. Just because
Okay.
you guys are all in one building together, you guys all live in the same area, you don't have to, call somebody in China or Kiev
Yeah.
or call somebody in Montreal. Um,
Okay. Makes sense.
so yeah, for you guys, it's a little bit easier. But again, it's the size of the problem. That's something that you really have to assess. You have to make a checklist and to make sure that, like, okay, your battle system can be a 2 week delay because your numbers aren't showing up, your equations are wrong, and your animations aren't playing. Okay, so now we know it's a programmer problem, it's a UI problem, and it's an anim problem. So now
Yeah.
you can find out that, hey animators, hey programmers, hey UI designers, UI UX guys, I need y'all in this room. And that way you can be like, okay, so how realistic would it be to redo the equations, or let's figure out what equations are wrong, and let's
Mm-hmm.
and let's talk to the animation guys, like, hey guys, why isn't this animation playing? It's like, oh well, the program isn't, the programmer's code is messed up. There's a bug in the code. It's like, okay, now you gotta talk to the programmer, and you really gotta iron down how much time each individual problem takes for each individual team member. Again,
Okay.
the longer you work with your team, the longer or the easier it is to be able to know that Andrea here is a designer, so if there's a problem with the design of this enemy or the layout of the hexagon battle system, it's doing too much damage. This is it's less of a tutorial, it's more of a skill check. It's like, this isn't fun for players.
Mm-hmm.
I know because I've worked with you, I don't know, 6 years now. I know that it might take you 3 days to fix. So I'm gonna give
Okay.
you a week, right? Um, to find it out. But if I've worked with you for 3 months, I'm gonna be like, hey, how long is it gonna take for you to fix this? And then you're gonna say something like, I don't know, 2 weeks. And
Yeah,
then
okay, makes sense.
and you may come back to me in 3 days and be like, hey, I fixed it. And I'd be like, perfect, we're right back on schedule. Or now
Mm.
we're 2 days behind instead of 2 weeks behind.
Mm-hmm.
But again, when you pull that trigger, when you make a decision and you report that to whoever does the checkbooks and the calendar and the deadlines, um,
Mm-hmm.
you have to make sure you have to account for how fast people are moving as well too. So if you guys are in crunch, then you may need that 2 weeks that I just gave you, or you may need that entire week that I just gave you. But if you work a 40-hour week and you have weekends off, then you may only need 3 days. So yeah, you have it's understanding your team and
Yeah,
understanding the
that's
problem. But when you break that problem down into small bits and you compile all the days, like the programs are gonna take 2 days, Andrea is gonna take 3 days, and the animators are gonna take a week. So it's like, that's 15 days. That's 2 weeks. Okay, that's a 3-week delay. And
Okay,
then, yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. Hopefully, I'll get to be able to estimate. That's one thing that I'm learning as well, is to estimate how long things take, because certain design tasks I've never done, or I've done once in a very different context, or I
hmm
just don't know how to do, which means that the time it takes to do it is not just to do it, but it's to learn how to do it as well.
Yeah, and you have to factor that
So,
time in too, as well. So
yes,
if it takes you 2 days to learn something and then it takes you 3 days to fix the problem, don't tell somebody you need uh, a weekend. Tell somebody, hey, I need the entire week.
yeah, yeah. So that's something not only for me particularly, because the thing is that I also help the rest of the design team estimate their things as well, because they also lack the experience. So
Yeah.
a lot of the time it's just more like an open conversation. It's like, well, how long do you think it will take us to learn this? And then how long do you think it will take us to apply that knowledge? Do we even know what it is that we're doing, or should we just first try to learn it, and then once we know about it, try to estimate the time it takes to do the actual task? So it is a learning process. But I am happy that at least the team, we're all learning it together, which feels like a lot less pressure, because it's like, okay, we're all aware that we're all trying to figure this out. So when things go wrong, it's like it's nobody's fault. It's just part of the process of us trying to figure us out as a company and us out individually as the profession we do. Because the team is just made out of juniors, so it's just nobody
Yeah,
knows.
and if anybody's watching from your or anybody's who's listening from your team, it's like take your time, but again, be realistic with yourself. Never, because normally people are gonna want more time than they actually need. Because
Yeah.
everybody's gonna be, oh, I know my skill set. I can do this in 4 days, so I'm gonna ask for an entire week, or I'm gonna
Mm.
ask for a week and a half, right? Again, be realistic with yourself and be realistic with the project. If the project can suffer a 3 or 4 day delay, yes, ask for the entire week. But if the project can't, then you're gonna have to buckle down and make the hard decision.
4 days. You do it in the minimum amount of time. That's something else we've been figuring out together, is things don't necessarily have to be perfect to be done.
hmm
It's like, okay, it takes you 4 days to do it to the very minimum, and if you have a week, you'll make it better, and if you have a week and a half, then you make it even better. But sometimes the project just needs the bare minimum. It's like you just need it to work because we have a deadline coming and it just has to work. And then afterwards, we can take the time to polish whatever we need to polish. But for
Yeah.
now,
My biggest advice for when a game ships or like when an alpha or beta comes out, it's impossible to launch a game without bugs.
yeah.
So don't feel like there's any pressure there. Because with Legion, we had bugs come up on the live version. So everything was perfectly fine. We put it on the marketplace. We gave it to Sony and Microsoft, and then day
Mhm.
one launch, bugs that we've never seen
Wow.
before. So things like that will happen, and there's nothing we can do about that, except for get to work and try to crush it.
Yep.
But again, identifying what needs the bare minimum and what needs like the maximum treatment is something
Hmm.
that I'm sure that you and the team are still um, honing your skills on. But yeah, you guys are moving in the right direction, it seems.
Hopefully, yeah. I think so too. It's been very great. Honestly, I have no complaints. It's like, yes, we're running into problems. Yes, we have crunches. Yes, like deadlines are creeping up and we're trying to do our best. But at the same time, it just feels like we're always making progress and we're always at least learning things, and we're working proactively and together as a team very well.
hmm
And everybody's very motivated to get things done like the best way we can given the time we have. And also, we push ourselves to not work in an unhealthy manner either. It's like, okay, everybody, we take a break. Let's go lunch. Let's go play ping pong. Let's go talk for a bit. Go outside and like breathe fresh air. Like let's take care of each other as well in terms of a team and make sure nobody's overworking to insane amounts.
Yeah, and that's again that's that communication that's very strong, that's very
Hmm.
needed in a team environment. So yeah, it sounds like you guys got a good formula going. You just again, the more time you spend with each other, the better you guys will understand your strengths and weaknesses and timetables and this and that. It'll all come together.
I hope so. I think we will manage. Given that we only been working together for 3 months and we're already managing like crazy stuff, I look forward to what we manage to do in the coming years,
Yeah.
honestly.
Um, okay, so moving on from that, what surprised you the most when you first started your job? And obviously you came straight out of college, so was there some kind of vision in your head about how the job is gonna go?
Well, yes and no, because I got hired as a designer and
Mm-hmm.
ended up doing work as a lead designer. So, of course, I expected more of a, hey, Andrea, we need this done, like we need this wireframe, we need this flowchart, we need this map, or we need this level design, or we need, yeah, whatever task designer, like just get it done, that's it. And then I ended up doing a lot of lead work. So it was me delegating stuff, or it was me doing like harder things design related, and then a lot of management things as well that I'm not completely unfamiliar with it because I did work a little bit as a junior project manager in an e-learning company when I
Mm-hmm.
was studying as a part-time job. So management things were not completely new, but it was surprising that I didn't expect it in this job particularly. But I'm very happy because I do enjoy it and I do enjoy the mix of sometimes I'm doing design stuff, sometimes I'm doing management stuff. It keeps things interesting. And the other thing that I'm very surprised about is the amount of effort it actually takes to make a complete game. Because, like I said, the previous projects I've worked on are school projects, which last maximum a semester, and it just has to have a working prototype, and that's it. That's all you need. Meanwhile, here, it's not just a working prototype, it's a game that is online, that needs patches, fixes, additions, new content. It's not you make a game and that's it, let's move on to the next one. It's you make a game and then you keep feeding it and making it bigger and growing and fixing things, and then you get feedback from the community and you have to listen to that. And it's crazy. It's a lot hard. Like I knew it was gonna be hard, but I'm surprised by how much harder it was than I expected it to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of teamwork as well. And design specifically, well, this I kind of was surprised while I was studying, not necessarily when I started the job, but it's like the psychology aspect of designing a game. Because you're making a game for people, and
Mm-hmm.
people are not machines, they're not very logical, they're very psychological, emotional, right? And as a designer, it is my job to make sure that I understand the people that are making the game for, and that I target the necessities that they have and the needs and the wants that they have, and I make sure that I fulfill them to the level that my goals are for my game. And I was very surprised by the fact that psychology was so heavily involved in this, and very surprised by the fact that I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very interesting to see how, well, just learning psychology in general and studying it and learning scholarly articles about it and theories and all that stuff helped me so much understand what my job was, even though nobody ever tells you that game design has so much to do with psychology. It's like people just don't expect it. They don't tell you, you just figure it out.
Yeah,
So
because
yeah, that was very
when game design is good, nobody talks about it, right? But when game design is
interesting.
bad, oof, you'll never hear the end of it.
Exactly. That is
So,
true. That is very true.
and because the nature of games that we work in, when you have that player, right? When you have the well, yeah, when you have the player, not everybody's the exact same. So you can build a
Hmm.
hallway and you can be like, yeah, it's a hallway, people are gonna walk down it. And then you're gonna find somebody that tries to open every single door and it takes 10 minutes to walk down that hallway, and it's just like, what? I didn't expect this to happen.
Yeah, it's it is interesting, and it is funny to know or to understand that design is the one. Well, because I don't hear the developers or the artists talking about the psychology or behavior of a player, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are, oh, this is pretty, this looks this way, or this works the most optimal way, and the system and all that stuff, which is interesting and very complex on its own. But it's like the skill level or the part of design is that psychology, that unseen behavior of a person that you cannot predict. You can only kind of guesstimate or percentage of likelihood of something happening in your player base based on research and certain like knowledge that you have of the type of people that play your game, you can kind of maybe understand that this is the things that they could do. And it's just so many question marks all the time. And there's no real answer for it. There's no right or wrong. You just do it in the way that you expect most people to enjoy and like, and you try to cover the needs of the others that are not the majority in
Mhm.
certain other ways so that they get engaged too. And I love that, like the problem solving of something that doesn't have one particular answer.
Yeah.
It's it's very nice.
And when you problem solve, you have to solve for problems that you don't even know exist yet. And
Exactly.
and that's the big thing about design is that like how do I make it myself? Like how do I put myself into this, and then also how do I make it pretty? How do I serve the game? How do I serve the narrative? How do I help out the
Yeah.
animators, the programmers? How do I make sure that it's actually fun and engaging? How do I implement the mechanics that make it I don't know, how do I make a good game and make money? How do I do this? How do I do
Yeah.
that? Design work is for me like 60% in my head and 40% on paper.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense because you feel the same way. My favorite question to always ask myself and others, because he always brings everybody's brains like, yeah, but what is fun? What does our audience consider as fun? Is engaging fun? Because you can be engaged and not be entertained. Is entertainment fun?
Hmm.
Is it like there's so many questions and it's so like up in the air and theoretical because it's like, well, our game is not fun. It's like, well, but what is fun and why is it not fun? What makes it less fun or more fun? What is the expectations here? And it's always nice because obviously everybody has a different definition for it, and obviously people enjoy different things. And when you ask it within your development team, the answer might be very different than when you ask it to the people that are actually playing your game.
Hmm. Yeah,
Because
because
designing for yourself is not always the right answer.
I mean, there are plenty of times where we QA something and or we test something, and then our test group comes back and says, yeah, the combat sucks," and I'm like, what do you mean?" And then we're like, "Well, this we can't open this door," and I'm like, "No, no, 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 I put that door there so you can see it from when you spawn here, so that you know which way to go during the level, so that you get to this door." And they're like, well, I can't. They can't. Like 2 out of the 8 people that tested it couldn't find the door, and I was like, what? Like, how more obvious can I make it? Like, you know what I mean? So,
Yep.
little things like that is really like, do I keep this feature because 2 people out of 8 are struggling on it, or do I cut this feature because everybody else got to it too fast, or do I cut this feature because again 2 people disliked it, or it's fun for one person out of the entire 8. So do I keep it because it's fun for one person? Or
Yeah.
like, again, there's just so many questions in the air, and then of course you trade that between the team, and everybody on the team has different answers. So it's like,
Yep.
ugh.
And not only does everybody have a different answer, but not everybody has the entire context of it. So the answer that they may give might be kind of okay, but at the same time, it's like, well, but do they know the entire situation that's going on? Do they know that later on in the design, I'm going to use that? Like, is maybe some sort of foreshadowing or maybe some sort of thing that will help you later on. But if I cut it here, then I cannot use it there, which means that has to change.
Hmm.
And do they know that the players might have this information? And it's very interesting. I think well, yeah, I enjoy it a lot, of course. It's problem solving that way. And it is, as you can see, I get very passionate about it. But
I
it is
could
enjoyable.
feel your passion, and this is something that I essentially started the project for, is
Yeah,
conversations like this, because it's just so much fun being able to, well, essentially hang out with like-minded people.
it's true. It is very nice. I really enjoyed this entire project and
Hmm.
idea. And talking about something that I'm so happy about and sharing it with somebody that's not. Because of course all like most of my friends already know, my family already knows, and obviously the people that I work with all know it, but it's like sharing with new people
Hmm.
not only what the project is about, but also what I've learned so far, right? It's like most of these things I wasn't really aware of 3 months ago when I started working on it. And now it feels like I'm a completely different designer and person because my perspective has completely changed in the last 3 months due to the work I've done.
Yeah.
And for the better, of course, because now I am more knowledgeable, I have a little bit more experience, hence I can make better decisions and be more assertive on the type of things that I do. So it's crazy. It's insane.
And speaking of like resources, and you touched a little bit on this earlier, like, are there resources that have helped you along the way? You mentioned podcasts and GDC talks and analytical videos. Is there something that is your go-to when you need to learn or pick up a new skill?
It depends on the skill and it
Mm-hmm.
depends on the questions I have, but most of the time, articles, honestly, it's just Google at that point. It's like I just go into Google, it's like, how do I do this? And whatever pops up. But if it's more of a science approach, then of course I try to look for scholarly articles. I go into Google Scholar, try to figure out, I look into books. I sometimes even reach out to teachers from my uni or people that graduated a little bit earlier than me that I know to see if they have any tips and tricks or any recommendations on articles that I can read. I like reading a lot on my free time as well. Like, well, I don't have a lot of free time lately to
Mm-hmm.
read, but that was one of my like is one of my favorite hobbies. So whenever I can incorporate it into my job, as in reading a book that is about this or an article, then I do. And one of the general when I have a general design question that is like, well, I don't remember, I'm not sure what this was about or what am I supposed to do, I just go back to the basics, and my Bible for that is Level Up by Scott Rogers.
Okay.
Like I always have a copy of the book on my desk because even when I don't particularly read through it, it's like they always mention things, and then from there I can do more deep research or more like it gives me a starting point, and that's always very nice. But yeah, YouTube channels, talks, analytical videos. Sometimes I even like watch gameplay and do the analysis myself of certain things. Like, well, I don't know how to do this, but I know that a couple games have done it before and they've done it well, so let me watch how they did it. And let me write down notes about it and try to break it down to the bare basics of how they build it up from there. So yeah, Google is my best friend.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I always have a movie playing in the background
Oh,
to help me just like to distract me because I draw a lot of inspiration from movies.
all right.
So to me again, there's movies playing in the background, but I like the colors, I like the framing, I like um being able to have stories be told in essentially a very artistic way um that's uncompromising to one director's vision. And for me, that
Mm-hmm.
motivates me because I'm like, I see, this person had an idea, had a vision, had one goal that they wanted, and they worked tirelessly to get there. I have a couple podcasts that I listen to. Designer Notes is the one I
Oh, I've
listen
heard of
to.
them.
By Idle Thumbs. They're pretty cool. I like them a whole lot. They do much like this too. They just interview, but it's a little bit less casual. They talk a lot about career and stuff like that. Where we kind of go off the beaten path, but they talk specifically about career in the games industry in general. Those are my resources. But when I was getting into it, I spent a lot of time watching YouTube videos and
Mm-hmm.
um doing things, like just making things,
Yeah,
making terrible things. Oh my god.
exactly. Make mistakes, you learn from them. That's the truth. It's like you do it bad once, the next time you'll do it better.
Hmm.
It's really nice. Yeah, like I go with it too. It's most of the time it's trial and error. It's like look up at starting point and start from there because at the beginning you don't even know what you don't know, right?
Yeah,
It's like
you don't know.
questions. Yeah, it's like you questions come up along the way. It's like you have a vague idea of what it is you're supposed to be doing, but you're not really sure. So then you kind of look up something along those lines and you start working on it, and once you start and you stumble upon a wall or an obstacle, that's when you know, oh, I'm missing this knowledge, or oh, I really don't know how to do this, or maybe there is a better way. It's like this doesn't seem right, this doesn't seem like the best approach for this. Let me Google specifically like this part to see if other people have done it before and have come up with better solutions for it. So you just gotta start. You just gotta start working on it and trust the process and know that the questions will come and then there are
Hmm.
answers out there because you're just not the first person to run into things. This has been going on for years, right?
Yeah.
People have done it before. So you will figure it out what it is that you don't know, and then you'll find an answer because somebody else has run into the same problem before.
And I do want to ask, and I don't want to spend too much time being retrospective, but if in the short time that you've had so far, is there one thing that you wish you can go back and do? One specific moment?
Mm, I don't think so. Because I think if there is anything that I would do differently in any point, like in the past couple of months or whatever years, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like where I am right now.
Well, that's perfect. That's again, that's another great quality of being a leader is well, having the gumption and conviction behind your decisions to be able to make one and stand behind it. So again, you have um, impressed me, and I think you are just so cool. And
Thanks.
your journey so far has been absolutely uplifting, and it's been really really cool to hear. Um,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, so let's. I'm gonna what's it called? I'm gonna pivot away from that. What do you like about the Netherlands?
Wow, that's a hard question.
The
The beer, I
beer,
guess.
really? I'm
Yeah,
not a big beer drinker, but go ahead, talk to me about it.
the beer is like okay. The Netherlands is like an amazing place, and the people are really friendly.
Hmm.
But when and of course, well, the security, safety, and just this how stable of a country it is amazing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have things like, well, I come from South America, right?
Yes.
And culture there is very different. People are more family, you know.
Hmm.
Here, people are a bit more distant, which I don't mind particularly, but it is an adjustment that I had to make. Now I enjoy it. It's like, yeah, leave me alone. Don't talk to me. That's amazing. Thank you. But I wasn't used to it when I moved here. Uh, People tend to be a lot more straight up and honest here, like sometimes even be called blunt. And that's something that goes very well along with my personality because not only do I like communication and honesty, but I like to make it as efficient as possible, which means the faster you can take me what honestly is going on in your mind, the better it is for everybody involved.
Yeah, I'm the
So
same
I
way.
really enjoy that.
I prefer it to be I mean sugarcoat it just a little bit, you know,
Yeah.
but like if you can just give it to me how it is, then please do because that way I can actually you know, put boots on the ground and actually work on something.
Exactly.
Whether it be
So
myself or something else.
yeah, and I really enjoy that part of the Dutch culture in general. And also, well, yeah, people here are very friendly, like they're very open to internationals. Of course, well, not everybody is the same, and generation by generation, they are react differently,
Yeah.
but they are always very open. They speak like to you in English. Like everywhere you go here, everybody speaks English and is willing to talk to you in English as well,
Hmm.
which I mean, for a country that does not speak English is very nice. They're very welcoming. The weather could do better, and the food could do a little bit better as well. But the one thing is that since it's such an international country, you find other cuisines here as well. It's like there's a lot of Asian food. There's a lot, like even South America, like there's a Venezuelan restaurant, like not even 10 minutes away biking from my house, you know. So anytime I'm feeling homesick, I just go there and I eat an arepa, and it's amazing. Um, and particularly where I live right now, is we have a coast, so we have a
Hmm.
beach, which I mean, compared to the Caribbean, not the best, but it is a beach and it has the sea and it's very nice and it does have an amazing boulevard with a bunch of really cool like restaurants and bars and clubs and things like that where you can just go and spend the time however you want it because there's anything you want from an ice cream shop so you can spend your day there with like ice cream and like talking to friends to bars at night so you can spend the evening there like enjoying the beach time during the evening. So it is really nice. I'm really happy that I managed to move here.
And is biking your main form of transportation? I mean, you mentioned a train earlier.
Yes. So trains, trams, buses, and
Yep.
biking. Those are I use all of them depending on the circumstances
Hmm.
because there's ways. Oh, and they also have like this really cool thing. I don't know if they have it. I guess they do have it in the States. I don't know. but they have like rental scooters where you just have an app and you just
Oh,
rent a
yes.
scooter
Yeah, yeah.
and then you go
Hmm.
places. So they have that here too, and I love it because sometimes I'm just too lazy to bike. So I just rent the scooter and then I go somewhere.
Is there a place in the Netherlands that you like to hang out, a certain bar or cafe? When I
Mm,
was working in San Francisco, I had a there was a like a bodega shop that sold burgers. It was like $6 a burger, and I was there like every other day. I don't know, I just the comfort food, and it was nice out. It was by the coast. It was great.
there's well in Groningen I did have that. It's a Irish pub called O'Kelly's,
Hmm.
where I used to spend almost like every weekend and sometimes even like during the week is when I was doing my thesis, that was every night. Like every night I was finished work at midnight and I was like, guys, I need a drink. Like and sometimes I wouldn't even drink, it's like just go there and like have the environment around me. Um but yeah, Gillies was my go-to back in Groningen. And here in The Hague, I really haven't found it. I spend a lot of my time because the office that I have is not just us. It's an office hub. So it's a bunch
Okay.
of startups and they can rent spaces and then that's their office.
Oh,
So we
okay.
have, I don't know, at least I couldn't give it an estimate, but it's more than 20 different companies working here. And there is a shared space in the middle, and there is like that's where the pool tables are and like the ping pong and all that stuff. So a lot of my free time goes into going outside the actual office, into the shared areas and hanging out with people and getting to know new people. Because all the startups are different. Like not like we are the only game studio here.
Hmm.
Everything else is a different company. So I get to know about what they're working on, what they do as a profession, what each startup is about, and it's really interesting.
And
So yeah, the
that's
office.
oh, what, The Office. Okay. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, that's freaking awesome. I hope to visit the Netherlands one day. I am a fan of Remedy Entertainment. I applied there not too long ago, and they're not stationed too far away. They're pretty far away. Um, but yeah, they're over there in Finland. So the weather over there was the deal breaker for me. I
Yeah,
was not a fan of the, I again, I live by the equator, so for me, I'm like I can't do
cold.
0 or -10 Celsius and 2 meters of snow. I can't do that.
Yeah, me neither. The Netherlands is my limit. Anything worse than this, I don't think I will survive. But Netherlands is good enough. Like it's winter is not the worst, but it's also not nice,
Hmm.
and summer is nice. So, but the thing with Europe is that everything's close by. So in 30 minutes, I can be like in the airport, and in
Hmm.
2 hours max, I'll be in some other country in the like in the Mediterranean. Yeah. And it's not even that expensive. It's like 80 euros and you have a plane ticket both ways.
Oh, okay,
It's
because
insane.
in the States is a little different. Like two hours for me doesn't. I don't even leave the state.
Yeah,
So
I figured 2 hours is three countries away from me already. In 2 hours, I'm in Belgium.
that's insane. That must be so
Yeah,
cool though.
it is. And in an hour and a half, or no, okay, from where I am right now, it's 3.5 hours. I'm in Germany. And 2 hours south, and I'm in Belgium, I think.
Do
And from
you
Groningen, it was even closer to Germany.
Are you gonna spend some time in the summer traveling a little bit? I don't know how your deadlines are. You guys said that you guys pushed out the alpha in February, correct?
Yes.
And you guys have a beta coming soon. I'm assuming it's on a Steam page.
It's no, it's web based. It's
Oh,
online
okay.
because it's yeah. But I'm not. I don't think the beta is gonna come like before summer.
Hmm.
Probably after.
Okay.
Uh, so but I definitely take time off during summer because that's the time I see my family. They come to Europe and then we travel places. So I
Oh.
always take off at least 1 or 2 weeks, probably more because yeah, I see like my sister for some bit, then I go visit my family in Spain, then my mom and my dad. Sometimes they come visit here, and then I take a day or two off to visit other cities in the Netherlands.
Hmm.
But yeah, usually summer I take a good long, like not in a row, but I do take days off, and then in winter I take Christmas, like the weeks for Christmas off, and then the rest is just depends.
Oh wow.
But yeah, hopefully I'll travel. I usually try to at least get to know one new country every summer in
Hmm.
Europe. Um, but we'll see this. Hopefully this summer I can like do the same thing
What's
again.
on the
But yeah,
bucket
if
list?
you
Germany,
Germany,
or
I already went to Gamescom and I want to
okay?
go again this summer.
How was that?
Oh, it was amazing, man. It was so good. It's like I went as a student to 2019, so
Hmm.
right before the pandemic.
Ooh,
Um,
perfect.
yeah, I was really lucky because also my study association got us discount tickets for trade pass visitors, so we
Oh
got
my,
access to the business area. We talked to a bunch of indie companies.
wow.
I got a bunch of contacts, networking. It was really good. I will always recommend. It's an
Hmm.
experience to have. I always tell people that are like, even if you're not in the industry and you just like games, it's like you have to go. It's amazing. Mainly because it's in summer as well, so it's like it's good weather. You can visit Cologne. You can stay there for a week and then like sightsee as well. And for me and my friends, we went on a road trip, so we drove there, and it was super cool because we made a playlist and everything. It was really nice. You should come visit. I'll take you like in the Netherlands and then we'll go to Gamescom and it'll be really fun.
I
I'll be
will
your tour guide.
I will jot Gamescom down in my list of things to do. PAX is right around the corner. Well, PAX East is right now actually. It's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually missed out on GDC, which
Yeah.
was actually ended up being a good thing because
Yeah, I was about to
apparently there was a huge COVID outbreak.
Yeah, I heard about it too, and I was like, well, it was not like I was gonna go anyway because San Francisco's a long way to go, but
Yeah.
I'm still glad I wasn't there.
So I have a couple things that I need to jot down and do. Yeah, I'm eventually when COVID gets lifted, quote unquote,
Hmm.
and traveling restrictions are a lot looser, I probably will spend some time in the UK and the EU
Oh
areas.
yeah,
I have a bunch of friends I have to visit, so it's like I have to make a giant road trip and I'll stop by.
that would be really nice. Yeah, road trips in Europe are great because everything's close by. Like one day driving tops and you visit five different countries.
Yeah, I like I hear it's like an entire day, like 6, 7 hours is just one or two states away. So I can imagine it
Wow,
must be so much fun. But yeah,
it is.
I would love to visit England and see my friends because I have a bunch of indie friends there, and you know, and Germany. One of my friends, singer, lives in Amsterdam, so I he
Oh,
asked me to come visit. So yeah, it's just like I have friends all over the place, so thankfully they're pretty close by. So
that is nice. Well, if you do end up in the Netherlands, please do let me know and then we can meet up because it is a really nice place.
sure, and you can take me to all the bars. I don't.
Yes, like the one thing I can do.
Okay,
Is-
well, it has been a fascinating time with you. You've answered a lot of questions, and we got to go back and forth on a lot of cool things. It has been a wonderful hour and 50 minutes. It has flown by.
Right?
I can't believe it.
Yeah, I can't really. I was looking at the time as well. I was like, wow, no way. It feels like 10 minutes.
Hmm. So I
But
guess
I'm
we'll
really
get
happy.
to the closing questions. Sorry to cut you off. Sorry, go
No,
ahead.
it's fine. No, that I've had like an amazing time and it's been very interesting and I'm really impressed by you as well. And I'm really glad that I got to talk to you and meet you better.
Yeah, and of course we are connected on online as always, so you are more than welcome to, well, again, whenever you have free time, I will gladly
Yeah.
answer any questions that you may have, and you can always interact with me on Twitter. But yeah, the closing questions. What's one piece of advice you can share with our listeners today?
Um, well, I don't think this is gonna come out as a surprise, but I'll say show your passion and dedication to anything you do, be it games related or not, and your values as well. And do it as much as you can because people notice, people see that, and that's what opens up a lot of opportunities for you. It did it for me. I always showed and gave my 100%, and I always stayed true to myself as much as I could. Um, and people did notice, and that's something I'm realizing now, years later, that people did notice it back then, and they keep noticing now, and that opens a lot of doors. So that's the one thing I'll say. you should pay attention to making sure people you put yourself out there and you show that you like something or that you're good at something. Show it off. Make sure you're there. Obviously, with the best intentions and with always like good intentions, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But make sure you do it because people are watching, people notice, and that will give you a lot of head start.
Awesome. Do you have any questions for me? I know you asked me a couple
Um,
already, but
yeah, I
fire away.
think all of the ones that I already asked, and if
Mm-hmm.
not, I'll always like ask you later.
Okay, and the last closing question I have for you is where can listeners learn more about you?
Well, I'm not very public on social media, so I do have some social media, but it's always private, except Twitter. So I will say that's the best way to learn more about me or even reach out to me. I think you put my handle on the description of the podcast, if
Yes,
I'm
I
not
did.
mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, reach out to me. Twitter is where I post most things about, like, well, the only place I post things about game industry, I think, because the other social media I keep it very private. But I'll try to be more active, and then that way people can learn a bit more about who I am, what I do, other than just game design.
And I can't wait to see more photos of the Netherlands as well, too.
Yes.
You
Now that it's
speak.
sunny and it's not raining anymore, it's gonna be
The
amazing.
snow is gone.
And there's no snow here most of the time.
Oh wow, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I
No, don't
the
be. It's mostly
Finland was snow all the time.
yeah. But Finland is further north.
Mm-hmm.
Netherlands is in that weird point. It's kind of like England and like
Yeah.
London. It's like it's rainy and gray and cold, but it's not snowy. So it's very depressing in winter. That's all there is. But in summer, it's very nice. It's really nice. Like spring, fall, and summer in the Netherlands is really nice.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Again, thank you so much for showing interest and expressing your interest in being on and talking to me
Thanks.
about your experiences and stuff like that. Thank you everybody for listening. This has been Industry Insider, and this has been Andrea F. She is a lead game designer at Liquid Ice Studios. Again, she went from being a student to a lead, flying from Venezuela all the way to the Netherlands to pursue her passions and her careers. Thank you guys for listening. Everybody have a great night.